Springfield's Talk 104.1 and a good Thursday morning. My name is Nick Reed. Kicking off Friday tomorrow from Scramblers Friday Road Show, sponsored by our partners at Shirley's Heating and Air. Scramblers, they do open at 6 a.m. and great place to have breakfast, lunch, if you want to do so. And if you're looking to get involved, you want to meet other people who are involved, grassroots level, it is a great time to come out there because there are a number of people that are generally out there, well, pretty consistently to some degree, people out there that are very involved on the grassroots level, not establishment-type Republicans, but probably more like you. And I know a lot of times people want to get involved. They don't even know where to start. Come on by, and we'll make sure to introduce you to the people that can help you do that, if that is something you're interested in. I should probably mention that a bit more often than I do, as we do that Friday Road Show at Scramblers every Friday. Chrissy Fonecki will be joining us today. Also, we have Author of the Week in the 8 o'clock hour, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Well, yesterday we talked about the continuing resolution to keep the government going, passing the House with all Republicans but one voting in favor of it, and then the decision Democrats are going to have to make as to whether or not support it, because it needs 60 votes. And Republicans don't have 60 seats, so that means that there would have to be a number of Democrats that would vote for it. And on the House side right now, currently you have Democrats that say they voted against it because it does all these horrible things that aren't true, of course. It's the exact same. It keeps the spending continuing to the degree that it is, which is why Massey, in fact, voted against it, because there were no cuts. Democrats claim they voted against it because it slashed all these programs and it was going to, kick children into gutters and, inject elderly people with diseases and, all sorts of things like Democrats always do. And that puts the Democrats in the Senate in a position because, okay, they have a choice to do one of two things at this point. Either some of them, anyhow, vote for it, despite the fact that people in their own party claim it's doing all these horrible things, or Democrats all vote against it and shut down the government. And it appears as if shutting down the government is the path that they are going to go. Now, they do have some leeway in there, as we have, the midterm elections will be coming up, and you've got some Democrats that may be running for re-election, and because we're not talking about the need for only one or two Democrats, I think 6 or 7 would be needed. Some of it depends. Rand Paul said he's also going to vote against it on the Republican side because it lacks spending cuts, same reason as Massey. But that would allow Democrats to have some of their colleagues that are running for re-election to go ahead and vote for it. That way they cannot be, in the election cycle, accused of shutting down the government, or they can say, no, I voted to keep the government open. So there are a number of strategic things on smaller scale, but this is a calculated risk. And I think what Democrats are not, of course, they just put themselves in such a bad position politically and just in every which way but Thursday. So you can analyze what a bad decision it is, but then one thinks, okay, well, what would a good decision be? They really haven't put themselves in a place in which there are oftentimes any good decisions for them. Like every decision, it's like, well, that decision's going to suck for them. That decision's going to suck for them. And, this is where they are once again, and I suspect that what they're relying on is the fact that they usually win this government shutdown marketing battle, regardless of who is in the majority. If there is talk of a government shutdown, and I know most of you understand that this does not mean the government is going to shut down. It's non-essential individuals, which many of us see as a real easy day at work for Elon Musk and the Doge folks. But, aside from that, the Democrats are accustomed to scaring Republicans into worrying that they will get blamed for the government shutdown and that they're going to lose re-election. But again, Trump is the component here. He's the variable that's different. And I don't think Trump is going to allow Republicans to be worried about that. This is a pretty dangerous gamble for for the Democrats, but as I said, what is the other option? The other option is to go ahead and vote for it, so then they avoid the blame for shutting down the government, which ultimately doesn't really mean much to the average person anyhow. The average American does not care much about that. This is not the sort of thing that the media makes it seem like everyone cares about it, but Washington, D.C. has this overinflated sense because of the way the media covers it as to the reaction the American people are going to have. So a lot of the reaction is based off of fear itself, just their own misunderstanding of the American people. Frankly, what I suggest is we just sit back and enjoy. Just watch it. Watch the Democrats continue to make bad decisions while they're frankly behind door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. It's like door number 1 is get stabbed in the stomach with a knife. Door number 2 is get kicked in the privates. And door number 3 is to have battery acid thrown into your face. They have just managed to magnificently craft every door that is available to them to be a bad doorway. And right now is one of those points in time. So we'll watch it play out. I'm going to be interested to see it. They're going to, I imagine, market it as best as they can that, well, it's the Republicans' fault because they know they don't have the votes in the Senate. They don't have the votes in the Senate, and they know that they don't have the votes in the Senate, so they're really the ones who are shutting down the government. But again, Trump is the variable here who is a very good messenger, and the American people, what is it that they say that they like about him and the polling that's been done? See, the media's done a lot of polling. They've done a lot of polling about what do you think about what Trump's doing because they believe that people would turn sour on him, that they believe their own hype, and so people are going to be like, oh, this is all horrible, this is awful, and the polling's going to show that 70% of Americans are against what Trump is doing, when in fact it's the opposite. 70% of Americans are for the momentum. They're for this moving forward. And what has been created over the generations here of the default wasteful spending, careless spending, is that as much as they want to paint the cutting of waste and duplicity in services and people who are in charge of the services, and they say, oh, well, they look at them, they screwed up. They cut this over here, and they had people are like, you know what? So what? We're fine with that screw up. We've been dealing with the screw ups for decades now that work against the American people and in favor of the government. So if there's a few screw ups that are harmful to some government entity for 48 hours before it gets fixed, we're okay with that. This is something that we're fine with. And given that 70% of Americans like the fact that Trump is continuing things moving forward and he's fulfilling his promises, for the Democrats to then be portrayed as, or to put themselves in the position where they do the opposite. We're going to stop all of this. It's just not a good place for him to be in. And I imagine it's a welcome one for Trump. He'll be more than happy to have a battle with the Democrats over this one. Shut down of the government. We've got weather coming up here in just a couple of moments. Traffic update as well. Right now, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Cullerton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 81. Tonight cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny through the morning and then a 40% chance of showers after 1 p.m. with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 63.
Streaming live, KSGF.com. Senate Democrats claiming that they're going to vote against the continuing resolution. They are going to lockstep work together to shut down the government. He announced this, that being Chuck Schumer, Wednesday, following a lunch with the Democrat caucus. He said, quote, funding the government should be a bipartisan effort, but Republicans chose a partisan path, drafting their continuing resolution without any input from congressional Democrats. Oh, what a joke. Because, of course, when Democrats are in charge, they're always like, hey, now, guys, I know we have our plans together. I know we've got our legislation all laid out, but you know what we need to do? We really need to bring Republicans in and have them look over it and make some adjustments so that this is partisan or bipartisan in fashion. I mean, on one hand, it just seems like such lazy excuse making because it is laughable. No one believes. Even Democrats know that this is BS. Even Democrats know that Democrats, when they're in charge, they're not like, okay, guys, let's get Republican input on this. Doesn't happen. I mean, that doesn't happen anywhere. It doesn't happen on the state legislature level. I mean, there may be some every every once in a while some issue that isn't really considered political, in which you'll have some Democrat and some Republican get together and they're like, hey, this is of interest to me and me too, and so let's write up some legislation, and they may get it to move forward. These are things we don't hear about, largely because they aren't anything that has any sort of real impact on the country. When it comes to the serious stuff, if you will, the party in charge does not open up the door and tell the party that lost the election, that is in the minority, hey, come on in, guys. You know what would be swell if we all just work together? So for Chuck Schumer to claim, but what else are they going to say? What else can they possibly say? I mean, they're going to make the standard lies. They're cutting this or they're cutting that, which this continuing resolution, again, the reason Rand Paul has said he's going to vote against it and Massey did vote against it is because it had no cuts. Nonetheless, Thune is calling Schumer's bluff, and he moved forward Wednesday evening to schedule a vote to invoke cloture on Friday. This is what needs the 60 votes so that it can move forward, and this is where Chuck Schumer has said, no, because you guys didn't include us. Well, win more elections next time. There's a lot of flailing going on. Yesterday, CNN flailing. So there was this event, if you will, where Trump, he bought a Tesla, and he was at the White House, and he got in it, and photo op thing, right? And some of this was done to agitate the domestic terrorists that are going around and lighting the charging stations on fire, shooting up Tesla showroom floors, car lots, attacking people who own Teslas. And you have people, particularly in Democrat-run areas, that have Teslas. Now, around here, it's not as big of a deal, but talking about the East and the West Coast, if they have Teslas or something, that's associated with Musk, they are saying they're keeping them in their garage. They're trying to not drive them as much because they are being terrorized by Democrat activists that believe that this is the way that you coexist. You terrorize people with whom you disagree, or just people who buy products that are from a company of somebody you don't like. So while that is going on, Trump, probably to some degree in response to that, it's like, I'm going to buy me a Tesla. He does a photo op. So CNN, of course, had a real problem with this, and Scott Jennings pointed out the flaw in their argument.
I'm assuming you agree, because as a Republican strategist, you wouldn't have advised him to go in front of the White House and drive a Tesla.
Wait, why? Of course I would have. You know why? Because if I were advising a Republican president, I would say, let's support American companies that have thousands of American workers and thousands more workers who make indirect products for it. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea if American companies did well under my administration.
Okay, so you're going to go ahead and support a billionaire but not support the American worker and not necessarily...
Who do you think makes Teslas, Sochi? American workers. It's good if
But it's
Tesla
very
does
much
well,
as
American
Dana mentioned,
you think
it's a
Elon
quid
builds
pro
them all
quo.
in his basement? They got factories all over the place.
Can these people prove to be any more stupid than they are? It is remarkable. It really is remarkable how stupid these people are. So she's like, well, clearly you would advise as a Republican Trump not to. He's like, well, maybe I'd advise him not to do it. It's an American-made car. This is the sort of thing that presidents and elected officials do for photo ops all the time in order to beef up their pro-America street cred. I mean, what wasn't it Biden just like a year ago or so?
That's what I was just about to say. That's all I could think about when Trump was out there with the Teslas was Biden literally held an electric vehicle summit, which he snubbed Tesla, by the way.
Yeah,
Where
course.
were they
Political.
on that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
And he got in one and
yeah. They thought he was going to wreck it.
Oh, that's different. That's it. So this is such a no-brainer. And the argument is, well, that's not helping the American worker. I mean, that's just helping a billionaire. How it is that Scott Jennings even manages every day to have a conversation with people this stupid. To have to point out, who do you think makes the cars? That's what workers do. You think Elon Musk makes those all on his own? In between his Doge work, he goes out to the White House garage and he tinkers around on the next Tesla that's going to go out the door. These people are just remarkably stupid. And every day they get paid by outfits like, in this case, CNN, as someone that they deem intelligent enough, more intelligent and informed than the average viewer. Thus, that's why they're there, so that you will come to them looking for analysis to break down what might otherwise be the complicated and feed it to you in a way that's digestible, because that's what their job is, of course. It is to gather all this information. You don't have time for that, but you tune in so that they can give it to you. Yet they're so stupid, they don't even realize that American car workers build cars. That's what they do. When you see a car driving down the road, it wasn't the CEO or the owner of the company that built that car. It was the workers, the American workers. And we're supposed to listen to people like that. Do you ever notice? I know you do, obviously. I was going to say virtually every time, but I swear every time someone this stupid demonstrates their stupidity, it's always somebody defending Democrat policies. It's always some Democrat. Always. I mean, look at The View. Look at these conversations on CNN, MSNBC, the things that are said that they aren't even political in nature. Like what now, the reason for her position was political because she hates Elon Musk and she hates Donald Trump, and so that's all that matters. But to claim that Trump getting in an American-made car is something he shouldn't do, he should instead be doing something to demonstrate his appreciation for the American worker and manufacturer. Like what? It's almost not even a contest any longer. Republicans should, by default, win every election. It is embarrassing for our country, not so much for the Republican Party, because there are a lot of really stupid people out there, clearly. It is not a very positive reflection of our country that not only are there people walking around that willfully stupid, but that they are put in positions of informational authority. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Local for Less Ozark, $50 gift certificate for only $25 for Springfield Little Theaters. Exit Laughing, so you can use that certificate to buy tickets for Exit Laughing, which will be at the Landers Theater March 14th through the 23rd. That launches live at 10 a.m. tomorrow at KSGF.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 81. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny through the morning and then a 40% chance of showers after 1 p.m. with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 63.
USA Today had a story. If the Department of Education closes, what happens to Missouri borrowers' student loans? And USA Today, well, Springfield News Leader has this out of USA Today, same parent company. Short answer is nothing. Nothing. Now, that isn't to say that there cannot be changes or that there won't be changes when it comes to student loans, but the existence of the Department of Education is not relevant to that. It is one of many, many, many branches of government. If you have a loan or you plan on getting a loan through your bank, and your bank, like the government, has all these different branches, and you find out one of the locations is closing, are you worried that all of a sudden they're going to cut off your home loan because they closed one of the branches? No, it doesn't even cross your mind, does it? Of course it doesn't. Just because that entity, that building, that closure, that doesn't change the nature of your student or of your home loan or your HELOC or whatever it is that you may have, or your any of your monies. And while, again, that doesn't mean that there can't be scenarios in which that landscape does change, it doesn't have anything to do with the infrastructure. And it's the same thing with the Department of Education. If the Department of Education goes away completely today, that in and of itself does not have an impact on whether or not people are able to receive student loans. This is part of the point of Doge. A lot of, and listen, I know much of it is fueled by hatred for Trump. This isn't simply about eliminating for the sake of eliminating. Much of what is being done is because of unnecessary redundancy. The evaluation of the landscape and recognizing that here's an institution here that does this thing that's already being done over here anyway. So all we did was just double the size or increase the size of government unnecessarily, so we can stop doing that. That's called efficiency. Every one of these clowns talk about, well, yeah, we want government to be more efficient. But the minute somebody comes along and says, oh, well, here's two entities that don't need to exist because one can actually do the work for both of them. Well, you can't do that. What about those people? What about their jobs? So do you want efficiency or do you not want efficiency? Is the point of government to keep people employed? Is that the point? Because if that's the case, well, heck, just double the size of government and just keep doing that over and over again. Make it less and less efficient. Let's create some new department that replicates the work that's already being done in several other divisions of the government. There's this disconnect people have with the rhetoric in which they say, oh, yeah, I believe in weeding out corruption. Oh, yeah, of course I support that. Oh, yes, I support making government more efficient. But the moment somebody starts to do it, they pitch fit. Now, Democrats, we understand why they're doing it. They're manipulating their voters, trying to manipulate the people en masse. But if you have a hard time determining whether they are lying when they say that they too support cutting, just not this recklessly, they too support efficiency, just not this way. If you have a hard time determining, like, I don't know these people, maybe they're telling the truth, just reach out to them and ask them where it is that they have made these suggestions. Where is it that these alterations for the sake of efficiency can be made according to their findings? Where is it that they have proposed that the wasteful spending be cut out? And you know what you'll find? They've never done it. Let's not forget, these people, particularly for a period of time under Biden and a period of time under Obama, if you want to look at more recent history, had control over absolutely everything. They never did any of that. In fact, they massively increased the size of government. You're not being honest with yourself if you listen to people who increase the size of government but then tell you, no, we're for making it more efficient and cutting out waste. Why have they never done it? Never. Clinton talked about doing it, made a big deal about it. The era of big government is over. Oh, and Democrats in the media, this is so wonderful. Oh, this is fantastic. This is great. A lot of conservative Republicans were like, yeah, all right, we'll see if this happens. Same thing with the Obama administration. In fact, Doge is a program that was developed under the Obama administration. It was Trump did not create that organization. The Obama administration did. It had a different name. Trump changed the name of it. But that's it. But, like Bill Clinton, he didn't actually do anything with it. It's all marketing. But boy, he was praised. Oh, this is so wonderful. Things are different. This is the change we've been waiting for. No, it's not. It's more lies. And yes, most of you recognize this is not a partisan issue. Republican presidents have also run on making government smaller, but not actually doing any of this stuff. I was having this conversation, I don't know, in the last few days. As long as I can remember going to different events, Republican events, even back in college, Department of Education, how it was counterproductive and it's just the sort of thing that needs to go away. But you kind of got to the point you're like, well, they'll never actually do it. So everybody sings the song. Trump comes along and actually does it, and they all scream bloody murder. Some of the American population has to be real with themselves, and some of you may fall into this category. You're full of crap. You're full of crap. You say that you want one thing, but the minute that somebody actually does it, you pitch a fit about it. Well, I just don't like the way that he does it. Oh, okay. You're lying to yourself. Because while you say you support more efficient government and cutting out wasteful spending, while you cheer on Democrats when they claim they're going to do it, you had no problem when they actually didn't do it. In fact, you supported them in doing the opposite. I mean, if you want less efficient government, if you want more wasteful spending, at least be honest with yourself. Or, I guess the honest thing is, you don't care. You have just picked a team, and whatever that team does, you're going to support it. No matter what. You'll be right there the whole time. Some people would call that cultish. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, we have some potential severe weather coming our way tomorrow. If you notice drips, leaks, yellowing on your ceiling, or maybe your gutters are just not keeping up, I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the good thing about the Pyramid team is that they want to help you find the best solution for you and your home. And that doesn't always mean a whole new roof, but maybe just a simple roof repair. They're not going to use any type of scare tactics on you, and they're just going to tell you how it is. I appreciated that whenever I had them out to look at my roof, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that too. And I do also want to mention that they do offer free roof inspections and discounts for our military and first responders on new roof installs. So if we do get severe weather tomorrow, and if you notice roof or gutter issues, remember the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I want to play some audio. This is testimony, Heritage Foundation, going over some statistics regarding the ratio of teachers in public schools on average in this country compared to non-teachers that are like middle level, in school, administrative, I suppose would be the proper term.
So if you go back to 1950, and I alluded to this briefly, there were 2.36 teachers for every non-teacher in a school district in America. Today it's 1 to 1. So stated differently, for every teacher you see in a typical district in America, there's a non-teaching, largely administrative counterpart. And so I mentioned that 100% increase in the number of students in public schools across the country, and that there was a 243% increase in the number of teachers. And I would just reiterate a 709% increase in the number of non-teaching staff from 1950 to today. So that's largely where the money's going.
So what is the overall percentage of teachers that are actually in the schools?
47.5%.
All right, so in terms of hired, paid individuals that work within a school, and I'd be curious, I don't know what the average person would think. If you were to ask, what percentage in the average school of hired people do you think are teachers? My gut tells me that people would say, I don't know, maybe 70%, 80%, and I could be way off on that. I don't know. But according to those figures, it's less than 50%, under 50%. And that is a drastic change over the past 70 years since the 50s. Now, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Are there reasons for that? Are there reasons for that that led to better education for children? Now, the outcome would suggest no, but there are other variables obviously at play there. A couple days ago, we're sitting around having people. We're having a meeting. We have not a lot of meetings. We actually have the appropriate amount of meetings here. And sometimes after the meetings, there are just casual conversations going on. And there were, I think, a couple of people. I had family members that worked in education. And there was the talk about, I wasn't fully listening, but at one point they were talking about, well, the funding's going to go away for that. Well, they're going to cut the funding off for that. And I didn't interject, but I suspected that this was a declaration based off of the media coverage and the Democrats that Donald Trump, particularly with the Department of Education, because they're looking to make it more efficient, that they're going to cut all this money off, that all this money is going to go away. Oh, my gosh. And the way the media does that is they talk about, here's what the Department of Education does. Oh, they do these scholarships. They're responsible for this funding and that funding. Well, Trump's going to make the Department of Education go away. And then what they hope is that people will believe that means all that funding will go away, which isn't true. And so I'm listening to this, and then somebody brought up one of the area school districts and the sports program and how much money went into it. And the discussion sort of veered towards that. And, well, that's where all the money goes, sports. In education, well, as long as it's football, that. Now, whether that's accurate, inaccurate, again, there are a lot of reasons to invest in programs. But here's the point. It's funny because I was watching that hearing the same day of that meeting. And so here is Heritage Foundation providing information about the significant shift over time in the percentage of hired people that are teachers versus non-teachers in public schools. Then here is a discussion that people are having about how there is what they presented, anyhow, their assessment that there is a disproportionate amount of money that goes to sports, specifically football, in public schools that should instead be going for educational purposes. And, so these two things in particular are all very layered, very nuanced, and are about how public schools are run. Yet, whenever it comes down to the political component of it, none of that stuff is ever considered relevant when it comes to the effectiveness of schools. It's just how much money that they're taking from you to give to the schools. So in other words, what happens is if there's any discussion about, education, the go-to answer is, how is it that you prove you care more about better education? More money. That's always the answer. Well, I support more funding for schools. Oh, well, that person must really care about education. Well, what about how the schools are run? Are they efficient? When we go from a system in which you shift away from having the majority, or at least half, of the hired individuals in schools there to teach actual students, but then over time, those dollars instead get funneled away for people that aren't in the classroom. And like I said, maybe that someone may be able to articulate that that is the best thing to do for a child's education. But we don't have those discussions. The same people that sat in that room earlier this week, in which I sat there and just listened, I usually don't participate in those conversations, who were griping about, in their assessment, the fact that local dollars for local schools, oftentimes too much of it goes to sports. Like actually talking about the way funding is used. The conversation began and always goes back to, well, we just need more money. So there's a recognition. You could see sometimes the wheels turning in people's minds if they, without even really realizing it, that, yes, there is a component here of how dollars are spent. Are they spent effectively? But when the political nature of things gets involved, all of a sudden it is simplified to who supports spending the most money. And I'm just telling you, if you believe that the future of education in this country, in terms of whether it gets better or continues to get worse, is dependent on how much money it gets, you are doing it wrong. You're evaluating it wrong, and this is part of the problem. This is part of the reason that as an American population, we have not been holding our public school systems ultimately accountable, because we have allowed ourselves to believe, well, if somebody comes along and says that they support more money for it, then that means it's going to be fine and better, and that has allowed this continued decline to occur. And it will continue to, as long as the focus is, can you imagine how different things would be if the level of outrage people expressed and the media covered regarding the potential elimination of the Department of Education instead was focused on the actual failed results within the school districts and systems across this country over the last however many generations? Can you imagine that? What a difference that could make for the best? We might actually be competing with the rest of the world instead of being behind everyone else. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. 8 o'clock hour, Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Fantastic folks. And in the upcoming hour, Christy Fulnecki joining us. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, refinancing needs, reverse mortgage. What is a reverse mortgage? You've heard about those. Seemed like that's something that popped up on television commercials maybe a decade ago or so and really were pushed pretty heavily. And you may have thought, is that a scam? Is that legit? It's totally legit. In fact, it is an offering that you can get from the team at iwantagreathomeloan.com. Now, it may not be for you, just like refinancing at a particular time, or a home loan may not be in your best interest at the time. It just all depends on your particular situation, but it could be the perfect time as well. Any questions you have about any of that stuff, and your credit, like, my credit's not that great. I don't know how to go about repairing it. One of the things that we learned from Anthony Carricker that I did not know, when you see these ads on television for these debt relief companies, and it shows the people like, I was $180 million in debt, and they got it down to $12,000 and gave me a free Taco Bell. Well, what happens is you have to be behind, I think he said 3 months in payments before they will consolidate your debts for you. And sometimes people have found that they didn't necessarily know that. There wasn't a lot of transparency, and they weren't really even behind. That's why they went to a consolidation, because they wanted to not go behind. And then the company that does the consolidation let it get behind 3 months. And so that hurts your credit score. So, there may be certain instances in which it is helpful for you. But point being, when it comes to any sort of questions regarding your credit score, refinancing stuff, utilize their expertise and advice on that. And, of course, when it comes to your home loans, I want a great homeloan.com, because you do. Chrissy Fulnecki is with us.
Yes, good morning.
Hey, I wanted to read to you a text message yesterday. I had talked about a couple of different movies that Sarah had not seen, and I said, they're both good. One of them is Wedding Singer.
Ooh,
yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
I'm not a rom-com guy at all, but it's a good movie. And then I said, I don't even know how this one came up, but for me, one of the most underrated movies, is a movie called Hot Rod. And
I've not seen that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. So I got this message in from William on the Pyramid Roofing Company Talk and Text line.
Hi, William.
And he says, off topic here, per your recommendation yesterday, my wife and I watched the movie Hot Rod, and have to say it was much worse than expected. However, it was strangely amusing. We agreed, quote, we'll never get that time back. However, after sleeping on it,
Boy, that's pretty bad.
However, after sleeping on it, the movie was pretty okay. Now, in fairness, I said that everyone has different humor. I think I said that. At least it was in my head. And that some people would consider it kind of stupid comedy, but
yeah.
It's I think you guys would like it. I think you would like it.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to take the time out to do that, but thank you anyway.
I don't imagine you ever actually sit through an entire movie and actually watch it.
It's kind of hard. I know.
In fact,
There's usually some emergency.
In fact, I had a conversation so a couple of weeks ago, I sent a text to your husband asking if he had watched or heard of
this should be an interesting conversation.
Severance. Yeah, Severance.
Oh.
And it's Apple TV. And he's like, well, we started to watch it, but we just got a couple episodes into it and didn't watch it since. I said, it's really, really good. We really, really like it. I said, I thought you'd like it. So when we were out the other night at dinner, and I was talking about it again, and I said, you should really watch it. And he says to me, he's like, well, it's not me so much. And he kind of nodded his head towards your end of the table. And I thought, I can't imagine her sitting through that show in particular, because it takes a great deal of concentration.
Oh, yeah.
Not that you're not capable of that, but you just seem to, be, you lean towards doing a lot of different things at one time.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, especially after driving, I have been all over the state of Missouri. I feel like I'm campaigning this week. After doing that for like 12 hours, I cannot concentrate on anything. Yeah. And usually we have so many children, especially at college, that call at night. So you have to be free to talk to them and everything. Mm-hmm. So, and some of them are at home. And my one daughter in the Navy is home. But it's so cool. She has to wear a uniform everywhere. And so I said, how many people thanked you for your service? And she said, oh, everybody did. So I thought that was so cool.
Nice.
And she's always like, well, I'm in school, but thank you anyway. I'm doing my service studying.
Well,
But
good.
yeah, but I've been in some interesting counties this week that I can tell you
So
about.
is it just work that's had
Oh
you
yeah,
all
just
over?
for Carter County. That is Van Buren, and they have a Subway and a McDonald's there. And
They have what? Oh, that they have a Subway and a McDonald's, and that's it.
Yeah, that's right.
What county is that?
Carter County, and let's see. Well, Webster, we all know where that is, and Howell County, and
Yeah, that's
Jasper
sort of-
County. Yeah,
Oh
so
yeah,
I've
Chat-
been
yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, you
yeah.
have been everywhere.
Yeah.
Now all
So
of
it's
those.
hard
now
to concentrate at night.
yeah. Now most of those, although the first one I'm not sure where it is, but the others are south.
Well,
of
Carter County
where's
is
Carter?
Van Buren. Do you know where
Oh,
Van
okay.
Buren
So
is?
yeah. Oh, Van
It's
Buren's
really
beautiful.
pretty there. Yeah.
I love Van Buren. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful area. So you're pretty much from the lower mid of the state over to the Kansas-Oklahoma
Well,
border.
and I have cases in Columbia, Jeff City, St. Louis, Kansas City, pretty much everywhere.
You should get a helicopter and learn to fly it.
I know, that's right. I know.
You could do our
Well, I
traffic
do want a
reports.
helicopter pad in my house.
I
I told
know.
you that.
Yes, I know. In
Actually,
fact,
you know-
that conversation came up Friday with some people about how you have a plan to have a helicopter pad on your land, and I always come back to the fact that why they land on grass. It's not like an airplane.
Well, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
I mean, usually when there's a helicopter
Well-
pad, it's on something that's already concrete anyway.
You know, the best thing was I was telling my architect this, and I said, well, I want this,
Your
you know,
architect.
and he was like, he didn't blink an eye. He's like, okay. He didn't ask me any questions or anything, which I thought was funny. But, you know, I do have this car that I got a few months ago that drives by itself. So everybody's been talking about, oh, I got, you know, there's this big thing that all the, you know, Hannity, everybody, they bought a Tesla. Well, I have.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. There's this big, you know, because Trump bought
Yeah,
a Tesla, so Hannity got a Tesla, and all these people are going out and getting it, which I think is nice, or supporting Elon, especially since his company is, you know, going down a little bit, at least the stock price. So
But that can't be right because he's only in this to make money.
I know,
That,
right?
That's what we've been told.
Yeah, right.
It's weird.
Yeah, and so, but my Escalade drives by itself. So, but I haven't tried it because I'll be on the highway and I'll think I'm gonna push that button, but then I get scared that something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
I know. Well, and when I got it, they showed me how to do it, and the kids are like, "Yeah, Mom, I don't think you should try that."
Which is really weird because instinctually I would think having you not drive would be the safer option.
Yeah,
Like having
probably.
you not be in control of the vehicle.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Just like
you
like, in
specifically. No.
general? Yeah.
You specifically. Christy Fulnecki. Not Christy Fulnecki not being the one in control of the vehicle would be the safer option.
Why?
Of the
Because
two.
I'm talking on the phone in my office, and I'm thinking about my court case, and I'm looking around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be it.
All right. We got traffic in a moment. Right now, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 81. Tonight cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny through the morning and then a 40% chance of showers after 1 p.m. with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 63.
All right, a couple updates here from the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Nick, you have just moved up on my list, man. Hot Rod is one of my favorite movies. My wife absolutely hates it, which makes me like it even more. Quote, I'm
Oh,
genuinely
that's
sorry about
terrible.
I'm genuinely
No.
sorry about the window. It has some classic lines. Another, let's see here. Hot Rod is horrible and hilarious. My friends and I watched it many times. Good memories. All right, traffic. Thank you to Kim, who texted in the following flyer. Stop Project 2025. Ooh, the tinfoil hat left-wingers are going to be out protesting this Saturday, noon to 4, the sidewalk by Zaxby's and Freddy's over there. But no, what?
Such a random place.
I know. It is kind of.
What?
Yeah, so, the drive that goes to Sam's.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there for whatever reason. Maybe, hey, you know what, honestly? If I'm trying to figure out a place to do protests, and I'm like, well, there's a couple good restaurants within walking
Yeah,
distance. So you
stop
get,
Project 2025
Yeah.
and get some chicken nuggets.
oh, give on
my
chicken strips.
Yeah.
I went through that Freddy's
I
once
wonder-
forever and a day ago, and I had ordered, I think, for like a couple of hamburgers. It was a couple of hamburger meals or whatever, and I got home, and it was a single hot dog in the bag. It was just, I think I'm guessing whoever was in front of me maybe drove off or something like that. But it was, I just thought it was really fun. And there was like
Oh.
nothing on it. It was one single plain hot dog and a bun. I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
dang it.
That would be devastating to our family. You
what-
should see like when we go through drive-throughs, how much
my
food like when we
gosh.
travel. We don't eat a lot of fast
Hey,
food, but
has-
when we travel,
Okay.
it's like you go through McDonald's with 8 people. you know?
Has there ever been a situation where you pull up there and then they're like, oh, the person in front of you paid for you?
Not
Can
in
you
our, not in the
imagine?
van.
Oh, I was going to say, can you
But
imagine
I've
how,
had that happen,
how
not in
angry
the-
they would be?
Oh yeah.
Like, I'll
that's
pay
right.
for those people, and they're like, well, it's $128.
I know. Well, you can see how big the van is. So, you see the van and you're like, okay, well,
Well,
the
I'll
12
get
pa-
the next one.
all the 12 people in there, I'm not going to pay for all their food.
There was a morning, this was years ago, that we were getting ready to head out to St. Louis to go to the Great Escape, and my mother-in-law was coming to stay with the girl child, and she loves cheeseburgers. My mother-in-law just, like, she had surgery a few years ago, and the first thing when she woke up, she asked for a cheeseburger.
Really?
I kid you not, she loves cheeseburgers. So before we left, I thought, well, I'll go through McDonald's and I'll just grab something for us to eat for that. So I ended up getting it was just me in the car, but I got probably $30 worth of food, $35, burgers and fry and all that sort of stuff. But then the person paid for me, and I remember thinking, like, they saw one person in the car, thought, well, that may be $8, and then they found out it was $38 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, when you could go to Taco Bell and spend $120, I remember when the guy was like, whoa, that's, I think, the biggest order of Taco Bell I've ever seen.
It must take forever.
Yeah, to get your food. Yeah, it does.
Well, even to order.
Yeah,
If you
no,
have it-
actually, it doesn't, because I've done it for so many years.
Oh,
I mean, we don't eat it, but we do when we travel. We have to go. And so, but I'm used to ordering very quickly, and and even when you're at a restaurant, like I'm like getting plates, I'm doing all that
Like
stuff.
you'll eat what I order for you. Is it that?
No.
Anyhow, so Stop Project
Okay.
2025. This is the left-wing conspiracy theorists that pop up every once in a while. So here's what they're protecting. And thank goodness for these people.
Great.
They're protecting democracy, the right to assemble, freedom of the press, rule of law, public education, Head Start, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, workers' rights and fair wages, civil rights, human rights, clean air, water, public lands, our environment, our children's health and future.
So they're for Trump. Then they're gonna have Trump signs.
So someone should go.
I'm gonna go up there and I'll say
People should go out there with Trump signs,
I know, I will.
And then whenever they're like, "You need to get out of here," be like, "Well, no," and have the flyer with them. Be like, "No, I'm sorry. It said here that freedom or right to assemble was one of the things that we're protesting for. So I'm confused. Do I
and
not
freedom
have the right
of speech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm confused. Speaking of, did you know Michelle Obama? This isn't really speaking of.
Yeah.
Did you see her and her brother have a podcast?
Yeah, I did see that.
And I saw the clips of it last night, and talk about boring.
Yeah.
I mean, and I told my husband, I said, because every night we, watch Jesse and Hannity and stuff and Gutfeld, and I said, this is probably the most boring podcast. And as much as I don't like Newsom, I mean, you could say, okay, he's entertaining for maybe 10 minutes, but I couldn't even, she's not even funny.
Well,
and
it's
she's so
weird.
negative anyway. It's hard. She's like forcing herself to be funny, which is not funny.
It's weird because, I'm trying to figure out why is she doing this? You know what I mean? It's not really political in nature, though she I thought it was funny. They had a breakdown. Like, I like it when podcasts do this on YouTube, so it's like an hour and a half long or whatever. And you can see, if you want to hear her talk about this, that is at the 53-minute and 70 or 7-second mark or whatever, so you can find it. But there was one, it was something about Barack's impact on the country, and it started at, I'm just throwing random numbers here, but 48 minutes and ended at 49 minutes and 30 seconds. So I was like, she spent a lot of time on that. But
I mean, have you heard it? It's actually terrible.
I heard parts of it, but it's it's weird because I'm guessing the thought is just the fact that it's her will draw people in. But then it's like there's just nothing real engaging.
Well,
there.
and I think she probably wants to run for president, maybe. And
I don't know.
This is like, I mean, that's what Gavin Newsom's doing. I mean, he wants to run for president, and so maybe she does, and this is her way of separating from Barack. But they were talking about, she had this whole conversation with her brother, and like, who does a podcast with their brother? I think that's kind of weird, but
Marie Osmond, maybe, I don't know.
I know, that's right. I mean, and so. And the brother's not funny either, because I thought, well, maybe the brother brings something different out of her, and then you hear him talking. I thought, well, that's boring too. And they were talking about partying the turkeys and how her girls, they were so, I guess they thought it was embarrassing that Barack was partying the turkeys, and so when they were older or teenagers or something, she was talking about how they're disgusted with it. And I thought, who cares? I mean, this is so long ago, and it's not even relevant. And so I don't know who's gonna. It's apparently not getting a lot of listeners.
Or viewers. I think it had 15,000 as of. But here's what will happen, because of, like, there's a Gateway Pundit story and some other stories. So it'll have a real pop in number of views because people like me that out of curiosity like, go watch. But I didn't sit through the whole thing. Now, some are speculating this is Michelle trying to sort of branch out on her own by herself without Barack because of all the divorce rumors.
Yeah,
and this
right.
is sort
Just
of her
separate
main-
Didn't she complain about him during this podcast?
I don't know. I
Oh,
didn't,
yeah, yeah.
I
Well-
thought she did.
Oh,
Or
that
I
he-
read a story somewhere.
Well, I saw that she said that that he always wanted to go to the bathroom before they left to go somewhere, and that annoyed her. or something.
He's never on time.
yeah.
And then she was saying that
That's not an uncommon wife husband.
Yeah, and then he doesn't talk, and he'll come in from playing golf with his friends and won't say much. And I mean, I don't know. It was kind of
I
weird.
didn't hear
was
that
like,
part. It does start to sound a little bit like, wait a minute, this isn't funny anymore.
Well, I
That's
know.
a real-
That's what I thought. I mean, if you listen to it, I only listened to 5 minutes, and I thought this is probably the worst thing I've ever listened to.
Now, if you want, there is an entertainment factor in this. Go read the comments that you.
Oh yeah, I'm
I
sure.
printed some off.
I'm sure.
I
it's
printed
just
some
probably
off.
like the White House comments were epic. I mean, the White House when Biden was in the White House.
So
those were so
let me
good.
read. So this is Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson. That's her brother's name. And I just printed off a few pages of comments. Here we go. What's up, dudes? Just another comment. Just two dudes chopping it up. So wholesome. Love to see it.
With Michael.
Yep. Just two down-to-earth brothers chopping it up. Another posting, when two black men are talking, I sit down and listen. Raw and uncut, letting it all hang out. It's Untucked with Big Mike and Craig. Another just noting, y'all got to get these comments disabled. It was a note to YouTube. Another saying, I never thought reading the same joke over and over again would bring me such joy. Thank you to YouTube comments. I'm literally crying. Another saying, I can't believe the comments aren't turned off. Another saying, I just came for the comments. Here is a comment. Barely 16K views, and 90% are just people who wanted to tune in to clown on the first episode.
Yeah, right. I'm sure.
They're going to have to disable comments during the next episode. Another said, and this was actually the first comment that popped up when I looked at it. Remember when this guy drowned his chef in a lover's quarrel? Oh, there was one. I did. It wasn't on this print off, but I saw one, and somebody's like, which one's Michelle?
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, I think we kind of talked about it last week, but they're so not authentic. So they keep thinking, I'm going to do what the conservatives do because they've been so popular with podcasts and with talk radio.
But they don't understand why.
Yeah, and that's, liberals are not, they cannot do talk radio because they don't have any beliefs that people want to listen to that are wildly popular. I mean, maybe they used to.
And they're not. They're generally not very interesting. Also,
yeah,
they're not
right.
very
Because they're not encouraged.
Not their fault.
And the Democrats are not encouraged to be free thinkers. They don't want people in their party, and so you want to listen to people that have different ideas than you, or that are
something that's just
independent.
challenging or
Independent
engaging.
thinker. So none of these people are. It's just so funny that and Newsom's his is so sleazy. I can't even stand to
he's
listen
gross.
to the.
Here's the thing about Michelle Obama that I think that she's always been all sizzle and no steak, if you will. She was almost famous for the sake of being all this. Oh, she's so inspiring, but because there wasn't any real substance to it, I think that was a long time ago. And that generation of people are no longer enamored with her. And that generation of people today they weren't paying attention when she was the first lady. So they're uninterested in her. And I think the problem of somebody like Michelle Obama is if you become loved and adored simply because you're loved and adored, after a while that fades away. Yeah. Because it wasn't really rooted or anchored in anything, and I think that's just sort of the fate that she's suffering. And Barack Obama to somewhat the same degree, and he really, really did himself a lot of damage during the Kamala Harris election when he told black people that men that
Yeah.
if they didn't support her, they were misogynistic.
Well,
And there were a lot of black men that were like, whoa, 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 hold up here. That is not why. And so he really did damage to the Obama name.
And there's certain things that people remember, like you said, with that example. But with Michelle, how much she hated America. And people remember that. And you're like, really? You're going to come on this podcast?
And she
talk
fat
about-
shamed kids all the time.
Yeah, right. And change the school lunch that everybody was mad about.
That was the other thing. For the extreme left today, that whole body positivity thing, like celebrate being obese. Well, she was the opposite of that. I mean, she fat shamed kids, and so I always thought that was a real interesting contradiction. Of course, the left is filled with contradictions. We got traffic coming up here in a moment, and weather as well. Christy Fulnecki with us. I'm Nick Reed. All right, traffic coming up first. Some of your response to Michelle Obama's podcast with her brother. Big Mike was a big flop. Big Mike planning on running next election. So is the Michelle Obama podcast called Mike and Mike in the Morning. And Travis and
That
Jason.
was a good one.
Yeah, Travis and Jason Kelsey do a podcast, and they're brothers.
Oh.
So there you go.
I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting. I've listened to a little bit of that before. So.
Oh, yeah. That is
Yeah.
entertaining, without a
Yeah.
doubt. Traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 81. Tonight cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny through the morning and then a 40% chance of showers after 1 p.m. with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, partly sunny skies with a high near 63.
Last text message from the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line on the Michelle Obama and her brother podcast. Let's see, where did it go here? They said if they drop an M, they could be Mike and Ike and maybe get a sponsor. They actually do have two sponsors. One of them I forgot, but the other one is Pine Sol.
What?
Yeah, it's Pine Sol.
Ew, weird.
Yeah, I know it seems sort of
Yeah.
random. I mean, I guess why not? But yeah, it's like Pine Sol's like, you know what? We're all over that.
Did we try?
We're back, baby.
Yeah, we're back.
I can't remember if you mentioned this, but when I sent in our group chat the thing, it said the FBI has just released the files on Michelle Obama that she's actually Michael, and then I sent it to our group chat and I said, "Is this real?" And Morgan's like, "Are you serious?"
I think she asked me. She goes, "Do you think she's serious?" It's like I don't know.
I was like, FBI just released this. This is awesome.
I love when people post pictures of Michelle Obama and it
looks
zooms
real.
in on like her dress and it looks like you can see a bulge. And you've seen those, right?
Yeah.
I just think that's hilarious.
Well, I mean, it looks so real too, and I never could tell AI or anything. My kids get so frustrated. They're like, "Mom, that's AI." I'm like, "I don't know." And I mean, but it looked. I mean, it was her and Brock, and then she was a man, you know. And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my gosh, look at that picture."
Well, the kids had to come from somewhere.
The what?
The kids.
Oh, their kids.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't
And
know.
they kind of one of them looks like her, right?
I don't.
But
I don't
well,
know
I
that.
guess that would still be possible if she was a man. She
Yeah,
could have
right.
impregnated another woman.
Yeah.
It all becomes very confusing.
I know that's right.
Oh boy!
I don't know. It's possible.
Someone had sent in. This is just fan. You want to you wonder whether or not school board elections matter. Glendale High School. So we've got Women's Month, right? This is your month, ladies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
In
it
case you
is
didn't know.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know.
So some of the inspirational women that the Glendale High School believes that young girls should look up to, they have them on the walls there, right? Stacey Abrams.
What?
Yeah, election denier. Stacey Abrams, who
This is in
who
the-
is Glendale High School.
What?
Yeah, Glendale High School. Stacey Abrams has been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Oh, who cares? Those are worthless. Anyway, yeah,
Well,
she
she's
also
about to go to jail,
Yeah,
by the
no,
way,
she-
too.
Yeah, she also
Yeah,
received
are they
$2
gonna have her
billion
mugshot
of-
right next to the picture? Do they realize that she might go to jail?
Ocasio-Cortez. She's another one.
Oh.
It's like they have picked the stupidest women.
Now, did the students do this, or is this the actual school board?
This is just so it was described as me wanted to share what is being put up in the hallways as Women's History Month propaganda. There are no posters of any modern Republican women, just these women, whatever a woman is, of course. Maxine Waters is another one. I know.
What?
It is. It's as if somebody almost is.
You know, if I had a kid at that school, I would call the principal and find out what's going on. That's crazy to me.
You almost wonder.
I mean,
Is it? You could almost believe that it is somebody making fun of Women's History Month by picking the stupidest women possible.
I know.
Like, are there pictures of the
that's
women of the View?
embarrassing. And right, exactly. And it's embarrassing
Dylan
to be a
Mulvaney.
woman
They're going to put that guy up there.
putting those people up
Yeah.
there.
This is the
I mean,
thing about the Democrat Party that once upon a time, like Hillary Clinton, for example, she's a conniving, lying piece of trash. But she wasn't an idiot, you know. Now she tried to play herself off of one when she got caught with all the classified info on the and destroyed all the evidence of servers. She's
and
like,
her emails.
and when they ask her about cleaning the server, she's like with a cloth, and she claimed that the classified markings that with the C with the circle around it, that she thought that meant it was a copy. So she tried to play dumb. But, she wasn't a complete idiot. And there was a period of time where the top female Democrats, they may have been wrong on politics, but they weren't just dumb. But it's like, look at these women. Look at the View.
You know,
Look
that
at the
that really-
Ocasio-Cortez, Stacey Abrams. I'm like, are you
You know,
serious?
and the crazy thing is,
Kamala Harris.
I mean, the administration is full of women, and so they don't have anyone in this administration. I mean, there are a lot of women they could put in there, and plus they're a lot better looking than any of those.
Yeah.
I mean, the press secretary is so articulate. I mean, she's amazing. I mean, Kristi Noem, and I mean, you have a lot of women, Pam Bondi, that are so articulate. I mean, it's amazing. There are a lot of women, conservatives that, you know, make you proud that they know what's going on in high positions. You know, I mean, look at Pam Bondi versus like somebody like Janet Reno. I mean, you know.
Now, give Janet Reno credit. She had all those kids burned up down in Waco. Not every attorney general can claim credit for that.
I don't know. I think if I was a parent, I'd have something to say about that. I think that's ridiculous.
Text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. Women's Month was supposed to be last month, but it wasn't ready yet. You know, because y'all take so long to get ready.
I got it.
Dig.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Dig.
Well, you white men don't have a month, do you?
Every month is white man's month. That's what we've always been told. It's a traffic update. Few more of the Michelle Obama and her brother podcast text messages coming in, noting that there are no pictures of her pregnant. Try and find them.
I know, right? I mean, you wouldn't have thought about that.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, you just say what you said about it. You don't think they look like her.
Oh, yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
If you look up photos.
Yeah.
How can people ignore the horse teeth on Mike and Craig? Are they anti-orthodontists? I don't know. Maybe they're very pro. That's why they got those big horse teeth. You just keep your hand flat when you feed them. Keep your hand flat.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. She might run for president.
That's what Dee always said. Dee's like, she's going to run one day.
Oh,
He
yeah.
always
Miss
said.
him. He.
Yeah, it could be the first they, them.
Well, maybe, maybe what this is that
First
she's
day.
going to come out as a man and be like the first, whatever you would call that, whatever that label is called. That she
It's whatever she wants it to be. That's you just get to pick your own.
Is that transgender or no? She would actually be.
I don't know.
And then she could come
It
out
doesn't
and
matter.
run
You
as
get to
whatever.
be what you want. You call yourself whatever you want.
I'm telling you, Republicans are going to win the next 80 years of elections. I'm telling you because of the total civil war going on in the Democratic Party, that they're going to be winning forever. You know that there's a problem when AOC is talking about going to town halls and connecting with her citizens. I mean, who would have thought that?
Well, she is a woman to be admired and respected, at least according to the hallways at Glendale.
Jeez. Gosh. Oh, man.
All right, so here's a good story.
Okay.
I thought this was great. There is a new, let's see, it's a 4-lane highway that is being, you could see a picture of it here. This is this is the Amazon, Brazil, rainforest, right?
Okay.
So this is a massive highway that's being built. Let's see, it's partially built highway thus far. Lush rainforest towers on either side. They've had to mow it all down. Logs are piled high in the cleared land, which stretch more than 8 miles through the rainforest. Diggers and machines carve through the forest floor, paving over wetland and surface the road, which will cut through what has been a protected area. A local resident told BBC said that he used to earn his living from harvesting berries from the trees that used to be there, noting everything was destroyed. Our harvest has already been cut down. We no longer have that income to support our family. Now, the reason, evidently, for this is so that environmentalists can get to the next climate summit. This is...
Are you serious?
So they can fly in with their big jets and then get in their big SUVs and drive on the newly paved road that mowed down miles and miles of rainforest, all in the name of saving the environment. It really is.
And they are not hypocrites.
It's as if they thought, okay, we do the jet thing. We do that in the SUV thing. How else can we damage the environment? How else can we display the tremendous amount of hypocrisy? Is there any way we can mow down miles of rainforest? Well, sure. We'll just build a road, have the next event in that area.
Oh,
that's what they're doing.
Gosh.
I don't know
Just
what they'll do
hypocrites.
next. I don't know how
well,
they'll
you
outdo
know
themselves.
how ironic is this whole electric car thing? I mean, now you have Republicans for electric cars,
I know, right?
and you have the Democrats that are.
That's how
I mean,
insane the left has become. That's how
I know,
insane they
that's-
let Trump make them, that they have turned against what they long have hailed as the great savior for the environment, the electric vehicle.
I know. I mean, who would have thought? I'm telling you, how much has a culture changed in just a few months? I never thought that would be possible.
I've said this for some time. They demonstrate it constantly. They have no true belief system. They will switch on a dime if that's what it takes in order to be against Donald Trump or Republicans.
Yeah, right.
Whatever it is. And the latest electric vehicles now. Because Elon Musk is the owner of the company. And so now we're going to, torch them and do it, whatever we can. It's just, they are insane.
I mean, if they really believed what they believe, they would take, boats across the ocean and not use their, huge jets and whatever. I mean, they're just hypocrites.
They are better than us. Yes, quote,
I know, that's
a
right.
new 4-lane highway cutting through tens of thousands of acres of protected Amazon rainforest being built for the COP30 climate summit. Yeah.
That's right.
I don't know
Yes.
how honest lefties put up with this stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Well,
if you
are
really,
there any
have
of-
to be.
I
I mean, there absolutely. I think they just don't know about this stuff now, because if this were an issue that the right campaigned on, this would be lead story all over the place. But people that are environmentalist lefties that believe that that's what the Democrat Party stands for, they never hear about this stuff because the media covers it up.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, but there are some Democrats. I mean, especially the huge mistakes, I guess, that are very public that they're making that you can't cover up. There have been a lot of Democrats. Like, for example, when Trump gave his State of the Union speech and all the stupid paddles and the, disruption that Green made, you had a lot of Democrats comment on that because that's something the media can't cover up. I mean, that's so, like, in your face that, they're like, okay, this is a big mistake that this happened.
Christy Fulnacki with us. Got to get a traffic update and then more amazing radio.
Yes.
Just
The
after
number
that,
one of
yes.
the week.
Yeah. regarding, of course, Women's History Month, and I think you had asked, when's Men's History Month?
Oh, yeah.
This Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, Men's History Month will have to have been in January and February so we can celebrate how men bring in the wood, shovel snow, and drive their wives to work.
That was a good one.
Back to what started that whole conversation, and
Yeah, because the
someone
women are
had-
stuck in the kitchen and we can't get outside.
not women, birthing pods,
birthing-
or what was the
Birthing person?
inseminated persons.
Yeah, inseminated
yeah,
person.
That's what the Democrat governor
Yeah.
in Wisconsin changed all of the the language. Instead of women, inseminated
Us
persons.
bonus holes.
Yep, with your bonus holes and
I'm not even going to talk about
The-
that
the-
subject. I got in trouble last time I went
Yeah.
there.
the left doesn't see women in a demeaning fashion
Yeah,
whatsoever.
right.
If you listen to how they describe you, but back to what prompted the conversation, and someone had sent in pictures on the walls at Glendale in honor of Women's History Month. Some of the stupidest and most corrupt women that we have: Ocasio-Cortez, Maxine Waters, and Stacey Abrams, and they will then have the audacity to claim that, well, no, we're not using the schools to indoctrinate people into
know,
left-wing
right.
politics. It's like, really? You clearly did not pick those people because of their intelligence.
Yeah.
None
Because
of
anyone,
those people.
all you have to do is listen to him.
Right.
Maxine Waters, and speaking of her, that she might go to jail too, is that, she sounds like a crazy person lately.
That's because she is a crazy person.
I know. She always has been, but she has amped it up. Trying to get into these buildings. And you're going to show these people as role models that are crazy trying to get into Department of Education and screaming that I'm a member of Congress. And do you know who I am?
She's gotten to the point she can't even glue her wig on properly any longer. Have you seen some of
that's
these? Yeah,
right,
her wig
yeah.
starts to slide. It's like, does she not have anyone?
What
to
is
be a
wrong with
better
their party?
caretaker?
They were so messed up, and they showed this whole thing about the woman that has the purple hair, the older lady.
Oh
I
my
can't
gosh.
Yeah.
from Connecticut. I can't think of her name, and she apparently is really big on TikTok. And they were showing her TikTok, and I thought, you look like a total crazy bag lady in this.
She looks like
TikTok
something
thing.
from that Jim Henson movie, Dark Crystal.
Rosa de Laura.
Is that her name?
I don't know.
I
what
never
her
knew what
name
her
is.
name was.
I don't know how to say her last name.
Or she looks like she'd be in Labyrinth or some
She
sort
was
of
kind
Jim
of like
Henson movie.
when they panned over to her during the speech. I was like,
It's
is
another
this like the Wicked Witch?
It's another
of
very youthful demonstration of the Democrat Party today.
That's right. They hand out canes as they're coming in the door because everybody had their canes.
Yeah, life alerts for them all as they walk in.
That's right.
Here's your life alert. You're surprised that you didn't hear them randomly going
You know,
off.
I was sitting there thinking when I was looking at them and then at the stories afterwards, and I thought, especially the younger women, that are just sitting there. And I thought, aren't you embarrassed of these people?
Why-
And the
you
younger
know-
men, I'm like, aren't you embarrassed to be in this party?
Why?
what
Here's an
makes-
idea for Glendale. How about somebody like Riley Gaines?
Oh,
Somebody
yeah,
that's
right.
actually, young, vibrant,
Yeah.
and
Who's actually
standing-
popular with young people, like I
and
said
standing
last
up
week.
for women
Yeah,
and women's rights.
right.
Instead of making women look like a bunch of idiots, showing and demonstrating what strong, independent women can look like.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
We all need to
that's
take
it.
the KSGF listeners to go over to Glendale and ask them what's going
Yeah,
on.
we're going
at
to
school.
storm the place. Insurrection. Or no,
Insurrection.
never mind. Never mind.
Yeah, you notice how in New York, none of those people got arrested, I don't think.
No, well,
Yeah.
that's different. That's different.
Yeah.
Chrissy Filnecki, everyone, have a great day.
Oh, we're done?
Yes, we are
That was
done,
amazing.
just like
Thank
the same
you.
time every week. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Any home or any home buying needs, home selling needs, whether it's for an investment, maybe you're a first-time home buyer, you're going to be a first-time home buyer. Maybe you're going to just get a lake house down at Table Rock, whatever it may be. Any questions you have, any help that you need, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. And if you're trying to sell your home, you're looking to sell your home, I cannot recommend anyone more than her, because it is not about just selling it as quickly as possible alone, but doing that while getting you the most out of it. A lot of times, human nature, realtor doesn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And so maybe somebody's just really proud of the yard work they've done. But it isn't the sort of yard work that really is that appealing when it comes to being on the marketplace. And so maybe you should do this or remove that. And she's going to tell you that stuff. Maybe your color scheme. You love it. You think it's the greatest thing, or you had some DIY project. You have a huge mural that your 12-year-old did for you, and it just means so much to you, but it really just draws the eye to a would-be buyer in a direction that isn't helpful. This is stuff she's going to be honest with you about, because her number one priority is you. And you selling your home for the most that you can get for it. If you want somebody that's just going to tell you wonderful things, butterflies and unicorns, and then, maybe somebody else is best for you. But if you want the person that's going to help you sell that home for the most amount possible and as quickly as possible at the same time, then you want Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I'm watching, the Today Show this morning has an entire segment on the increased anger of Canadians at America because of tariffs. So what? Listen, I'm not here to claim that we should be out there trying to tick people off. But, many of us get real sick and tired of everyone else under the sun being a priority over Americans. This is part of what the left doesn't seem to understand. They prioritize criminals over law enforcement, law-abiding citizens. They criminalize they prioritize illegal immigrants over legal immigrants. They prioritize people who aren't Americans over Americans. I mean, the left, we are always to be stepped on. And that is just such a different approach, and why, frankly, a lot of people really like Donald Trump, even if he doesn't, everything he does isn't going to turn out exactly the way that he wants. But people recognize his motivation is that we are better off. His motivation is that whenever there is, a situation with a trading partner and we've been taken advantage of all this time, that needs to stop. It needs to be just a little more even. Oh, but it makes the people of Canada upset. Sorry. How about Americans, a little concern for like dairy farmers who have to deal with a 300% tariff on dairy products going into Canada? Any concern for those people? Any concern for any of the industries that have massive tariffs slapped upon them from these other countries? Any interest there? No. See. Because it's the other guy we're supposed to constantly be worried about. Donald Trump isn't supposed to be looking out for Americans. He's supposed to be the president of all these other countries, and they're supposed to take priority over us. Traffic coming up in a moment. We have Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone as well. Right now, latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 81. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny through the morning and then a 40% chance of showers after 1 p.m. with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 63.
I'm Nick Reed. It's Thursday, which means it's Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Our author, Mary Graber, resident fellow at the Alexander Hamilton Institute for the Study of Western Civilization, and the founder of the Dissident Prof Education Project, teaching at the college level for 20 years, most recently at Emory University, and her work has been published Town Hall, which of course we carry, townhall.com news, Front Page Mag, and The Federalist, much of which so many of you are very familiar with. The book is Debunking FDR, The Man and the Myths. I appreciate you being with us this morning. FDR is one of those characters that definitely seems to be surrounded by myth that runs counter to the reality of the sort of president that he was. Before we get into that, if you would, what prompted you to write about FDR specifically?
Well, it was while I was researching someone else, which, if you've ever written a book, is not surprising. I was researching George Schuyler, a prominent Black conservative of his time. He died in 1977, and he transitioned from socialist to a staunch anti-communist and conservative, and he did that primarily because of FDR's policies. He saw what would happen under a socialist system, government that redistributes wealth, that imposes all kinds of regulation, began the deep state that we see today that President Trump is trying to dismantle. And I noticed that there were a lot of his contemporaries who were, writing and speaking out against FDR, and these people have been forgotten, like Westbrook Pegler and John T. Flynn. And so I, was curious, what did FDR really do, and why was he hated by so many people? I sort of had the same misconceptions about FDR.
You mentioned the deep state, and I do want to talk about that coming up. I'm saying it out loud so I don't forget. But I want to start with just his ascension to the presidency. Oftentimes, these figures historically are presented as individuals that just accepted their calling, while in fact there is more of a very deliberate attempt and effort to ascend to power. Where was he on that spectrum?
Well, he had a very deliberate path, and he articulated that as a freshman at Harvard. He told a girl that he was courting and her family that he thought he could be president. And I think that's a pretty young age to lay out those plans. And he deliberately followed in the footsteps of his fifth cousin, Theodore Roosevelt, and ran initially for the New York State Assembly. But the person who had that position decided to run again, and then he ran for the Senate and won that seat. And, that's exactly how Theodore Roosevelt started out, with a seat in the Assembly, and then went on to become Assistant Secretary of the Navy, tried to run for vice president, lost. He was the vice presidential candidate along with Cox, and then was struck by polio. But after a period of a few years, he then became governor. And so he followed very deliberately in the path, very methodically in the path of his cousin.
We're talking with Mary Graber, our author of the week, Debunking FDR, the Man and the Myths. There are a couple of decisions or efforts that took place by FDR that we today live with the results of. One, term limits and the number of people in the Supreme Court, and those are connected in some fashion. And these are things that we live with today because of what even his fellow Democrats had a problem with, is my understanding, that really his overreach in the presidency, a lot of the pushback he received was from within his own party. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So he tried packing the court, and the Democrats recently tried to do that.
Right.
Right. It's like, hey, that didn't work back then.
Yeah.
Why are you trying it now? But anyway, that was their strategy. So he had an overwhelming victory in the 1936 election, and was frustrated because the Supreme Court was striking down his New Deal policies as unconstitutional, as they should have. And he got pushback from Congress, as you mentioned. Back then, there were still conservative Democrats. So what he tried to do after that is get rid of the conservative Democrats and purge, in the primaries in the 1938 primaries, tried to purge the party of the conservatives. He was partially successful in that. But that was sort of his, way of doing politics. If he didn't get his own way, he tried another way, through strong arm techniques.
Isn't it interesting, I'll give you my thoughts on this and then interested to hear your thoughts on it. The Democrats today that try and portray Trump as a racist and a power-hungry dictator, and you look back at FDR, whether it's internment camps or packing the courts because, as you just noted, they weren't just rubber stamping much of his constitutional violations and purging the party of people that weren't in line with his governing. And yet, he is seen and held up as iconic and a great president to be admired by Democrats who call Trump a dictator and a racist. Your thoughts on that?
Well, when he was first elected president, there was talk of a need for a dictator And this was, the age of Mussolini and Hitler coming to power. And, the country was in a deep depression, and many people thought that democracy wasn't working or, constitutional republic was inadequate and were calling for a dictator. And after his inaugural address in 1933, FDR received all kinds of praise from Italy, from fascist Italy, and Mussolini praised him, and FDR admired Mussolini. So, here was someone who did act as a dictator and thought he had a mandate to be a dictator. And his first 100 days, he just, passed the Emergency Banking Act. It was passed by Congress before it was printed out. It was a rolled up newspaper. And, one of FDR's men just briefly described what it would do, and they, just went along and just, he basically steamrolled his way, when he first took office. And of course, he had the opportunity because of the Depression, which left people desperate and wanting someone to save the country. But of course, there was a lot leading up to that. Not just anyone would have been able to do what FDR did. His popularity was something that he was born with. He was born into the class of the landed gentry along the Hudson River Valley. He came from a very privileged, feudalistic background. But he was worshipped because of his name and his family. And so he had an advantage right from the beginning.
You mentioned deep state earlier, and I think for a lot of Americans, they associate deep state with more modern surveillance. I think there's a couple of reasons that a lot of Americans can fairly think that it is more of a recent phenomenon. One, it seemed to have lost all control of itself in terms of a desire to stay under the public radar. And at the same time, with the technological advances, people associate the ability to spy on people with a great deal of ease. And so this idea that the deep state is something that was either, it began under FDR or at least it existed during that period of time is something that is just, it sort of defies what it is that they know about history. So tell us about that deep state and how it functioned then under FDR versus today.
Right. Well, FDR had his famous brain trust. So he surrounded himself with what he called a privy council, which is, someone that or a group that advises a monarch. So that's how he thought of himself. But these were young men who had advanced degrees, but had no real world experience and often very little common sense. And they devised all these different agencies and programs. And FDR famously said about Social Security, once we get this instituted, no one will ever be able to get rid of it. I don't have exact words, but that's what he said, and he was very proud of that fact. And of course, here we are, almost 100 years later. But so these agencies were set up, and it's almost impossible today to follow the money. Where does the money go? Who is running things? Who's doling out the funds? So the seeds for all this were established under FDR. Of course, Wilson before him was a progressive, but he didn't have the opportunity that FDR had during the Depression to implement these programs. And FDR, just took advantage of the circumstances. This was something he wanted to do as a young state senator. So my book focuses on his years leading up to the presidency in his early days of the presidency. But in 1912, at the People's Forum in Troy, New York, he was talking about what the founders really wanted. They wanted independence, they got that, but what they were really groping for is interdependence. And he was talking about the role of government, and he asked the rhetorical question about a farmer. If you have a certain number of acres and you're letting them go fallow because you don't feel like, raising crops, the state should be able to come in and compel you to put that acreage into wheat or corn or whatever the state determines. So he saw the government as being this organization with all these different agencies that would compel Americans to, if they were farmers, on how to run their farms, if they were laborers, where they should work, would compel mandatory military service for everyone, although he himself never served. So, this is the way he saw American government, and he implemented it during the Great Depression. And so now we have that today, and we're living with the consequences.
It seems as if people are becoming a little more interested and curious and a little less trusting of conventional history, if you will, recognizing that maybe some of what we have been taught isn't exactly in line with the truth. And so I think people are more open to recognizing that the myths that exist may not be in line with reality. Why do you think it is that FDR has been able to get away with such a contradiction of the myth of who he is and presented as someone that was just, one of the greatest American presidents ever and just so wonderful for, quote, democracy, yet in practice was so much different? Why was he able to do that?
Well, a lot of the early histories that were written during his lifetime were written by, speech writers and people who were either in Democratic politics or working for him. And then one of the first authors was Arthur Schlesinger, who taught at Harvard University, and he wrote his 3-volume history of the years of FDR. And he presented FDR as someone who was seen as a traitor to his class. So Arthur Schlesinger, who was, a partisan Democrat, an advocate and champion of the New Deal, worshipped FDR, said that the only reason that anyone could dislike Franklin Roosevelt was someone who was of the upper class and resented his taxation and helping those less fortunate. And so they saw, FDR as a traitor to his class because FDR came from, a wealthy family. And there's a story about that, about how his family got the wealth in my book. And that was handed down. And so around 2008, we have a very prolific and prominent historian by the name of H.W. Brands, who writes a book called Traitor to His Class. And you have, William Leuchtenberg, who recently died at the age of 102, who loved FDR because as a result of his policies, he was able to attend Cornell University under the National Youth Administration, where he got a job cleaning test tubes on campus. Leuchtenberg came from a middle-class family who could not afford the tuition at Cornell. And there were people who benefited from the programs. I just talked to someone whose grandfather, I think, as a young man was in the Civilian Conservation Corps, the camps that, had sort of military training, but outdoor work for unemployed young men. So they look back fondly to these desperate days and to programs that might have helped them individually, but they don't see the big picture. And of course, as I've said in my other two books, the profession of, history is dominated by liberals. And so the books that get published, the books that are cited, are overwhelmingly written by historians who have a liberal pro Roosevelt perspective.
Well, we are glad for this book. Glad to have you this morning. Again, the author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, Mary Graber, Debunking FDR, The Man and the Myths. I'm Nick Reed on Springfield's Talk 1041. Tomorrow's Friday. A couple notes of interest. One, we will be broadcasting live from Scramblers. That is our Friday Road Show every Friday, 6A to 9A. That is sponsored by Shirley's Heating and Air. And then at 10 a.m. at KSGF.com, you can do a local for less for $25, a $50 gift certificate to Springfield's Little Theater to be used towards purchasing tickets for Exit Laughing at the Landers Theater, March 14th through 23rd.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 81. Tonight cloudy with a low around 58. For your Friday, mostly sunny through the morning and then a 40% chance of showers after 1 p.m. with a high near 77. And on Saturday, partly sunny skies with a high near 63.
We are learning what tactic the Democrats are going to try and use regarding the upcoming continuing resolution situation, the House passing it with the all Republicans, Massey being the one Republican that voted against it, citing the fact that it doesn't cut anything. Over on the Senate side, Rand Paul, Republican, has said he also would vote against it for the same reason. Now, Democrats claim that they voted against it because it cuts stuff, which, of course, it does not. Nothing. No cuts. In order to move it forward for a vote in the Senate, it has to get 60 votes, and there are only 53 Republicans. So 8 Democrats are needed in order to get that thing moving forward. Chuck Schumer has said, well, Republicans didn't consult with us, so we're going to vote against it. Oh, okay. Which means government shutdown. So how is it that the Democrats, what are they going to do? How are they going to market this thing? Apparently, they're letting the word get out that what they're doing is they are calling on the House side for a bipartisan continuing resolution, a new one that will last 4 weeks, and that will put restrictions on Elon Musk and a number of other things that Democrats want that they know Republicans won't vote for. And then that way the Senate side will vote for it as well. That's their expectation, that the Democrats there'll be enough Democrats and Republicans that come together, and then it'll go to Trump's desk, in which he'll sign it. So apparently this is their marketing. This is what their marketing is going to be. That Republicans came up with a partisan piece of, or it's not legislation, but a continuing resolution that they knew would not pass. And so Democrats, in the spirit of bipartisanship and working together, are coming up with something else that everyone can come together on, but the mean Republicans won't do that. And so it's their fault things are shutting down. This isn't going to work. If that's the way it plays out, it's not going to work. If Trump weren't a variable in all of this, maybe it would. The only hope that Democrats could have in that plan is if they could strong-arm enough Republicans, which they wouldn't need a whole lot, to vote with them on it. If they could convince enough of those Republicans that love to side with Democrats, as they have in the past on certain spending issues, and peel them away and at least show the numbers that, hey, we have the numbers, this needs to be allowed to come forward so we can vote on it, then they might have just a little bit of success in the marketing of that. But I don't believe that's going to happen. I think they're just at this point flailing around, desperately trying to get any sort of evidence that they're the ones who are trying to get things done, and it's Republicans who are shutting down the government. But it just is not, at least the way things are rolling out currently, going to work for them. But that appears to be the play that is currently underway as Democrats desperately try to find a way to not continue their descent into, I'm not a big believer that they're going to be permanent minority, but they certainly aren't helping themselves any. There's a story that I believe this is a repeat for Missouri, a bill to eliminate child marriage. This week, Missouri lawmakers, this is KY3, could be sending their first bills to the governor's desk. One of those bills approaching the finish line would eliminate child marriage in Missouri. The Senate gave near unanimous approval to a bill that would close a loophole allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to get married with a parent's permission. The bill heads to the House now, where leadership has given it cautious support. It needs to pass unchanged to go to the governor's desk. The minimum age to get married in Missouri was raised from 15 to 16 years old in 2018. Teens wishing to get married have to get permission from at least one parent, and their spouse has to be younger than 21. Two identical bills in the House and Senate would take away that. It's not a loophole. That's the way it was written. And this may be incidental, but this is a pet peeve of mine when a specifically written portion of a law regarding the parameters of how that law will be applied is referred to as a loophole. A loophole, at least until recently, has referenced essentially a law being written in a way in which somebody kind of found a trick, a way to get around it that was not intended. Like, oh man, we didn't even think about that. Boy, they were pretty clever to figure that out. So a loophole is a way for somebody to get, to bypass a law in a manner that was never intended. They figured out just sort of a secret passageway. A loophole is not when a law was written a specific way with an exemption in it specifically to exempt people, and then that's not a loophole. That aside, there was only one vote against the bill in the Missouri Senate. Ash Grove Senator Mike Moon, who voted against this, did not speak with me today. This is, again, a KY3 story. But holdouts in the House are concerned about this infringing on religious groups they say are encouraged to court and marry young. Carthage Republican Rep. Kathy Jo Loy said, is there something we can that we could make sure we're not infringing upon their religious rights by saying, sorry, I can't do that? Former State Senator Holly Ryder championed the bill, and other lawmakers picked it up this year. Ryder experienced child marriage firsthand. At 15, she married to escape an abusive household. Looking back, she said she was not mature enough to make such a significant decision. Wait until you're 18 doesn't change anything from your love life. The bill heads to the Missouri House. Speaker of the House, Representative John Patterson, voiced cautious support for the bill. I do want to respect some of the concerns that were raised in committee, he said, but that's a bill that you'll see moving forward, and I'm in full support of that. The bill passed out of the Senate last year, but couldn't get enough support from the House. Advocates believe educating lawmakers on the bill will be the key to getting it passed this year. Now, ultimately, I don't think that this really will have an impact one way or another. And largely because if you have, let's say, some scenario, for whatever reason, and you have parents of a 15 or a 16-year-old, and they want their child to be able to marry someone who is 19, the government saying you can't, I just don't know how that's going to alter the behavior of all of those parties involved. Yeah, they may not have a slip of paper from the government, but it's not going to stop them from living as a couple. I mean, if again, this scenario, which I don't expect is going to be something that is commonplace, if ever, but, the idea here is essentially to not allow the parental permission aspect of it as it is now. So, you're 16, your parents say, yeah, you can get married to your 19-year-old boyfriend. That way you can live together and start a family. Well, if the parents are fine with this, the fact that part of the law no longer exists, which allows them to give permission, isn't going to stop the 16-year-old and the 19-year-old from moving in together and starting a family. For the personal experience of Holly Ryder, who says that she married someone for the purposes of escaping an abusive household, well, the reality is that's not the only way that you can escape an abusive household. I mean, it's not like that's the only way that can be done. People run away from home all of the time. I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do, but I don't know. It just sort of makes it seem, I don't know. It's just it's an odd connection to me, almost as if, well, that was the only option she had. And if that was the case, then this would sort of take that option away, but nonetheless. the waiting until you're 18, because some of the, like I said, I don't think it's going to have any meaningful difference whatsoever. Not going to really change or affect anybody's behavior. I do find it somewhat funny that you can argue, hey, listen, if you're 16 or 17, you're not mature enough to be married. You need to wait until you're 18 in order to make sure that you're mature enough. Like, really? I mean, is that really what we're going to argue? I know 30-year-olds that probably aren't mature enough to be married. And it's not to say that automatically means some 16-year-old is, but if these arbitrary dates, this like, oh, well, the government decided that if you're 17 years old, you're not mature enough to be married. But if you're 18, magically you wake up and you automatically are going to have this wonderful, mature marriage. It's just these arbitrary points that are put on calendars. They just seem silly to me. And they're never explained. If you say, well, why 18? What is it about 18 that makes somebody, in the eyes of the government, suddenly emotionally responsible to be married as opposed to being 17 or 16 years old? There really isn't ever any substantive answer to that. All this being said, it is once again, or it should be noted, we live in a society, and this is pretty bipartisan, but when it comes to the young marriage thing, for whatever reason, the left really likes to paint this as a right-winger thing. Like, those crazy right-wing and Bible thumpers that want to marry their 14-year-old daughters off to have kids, and how backwards it is. But these are the same people who argue if you're 15 years old, with your parents' permission, you should be able to get a sex change operation. And sometimes even without your parents' permission. If a person is going, should not the left be absolutely opposed to this? How can you as a political party argue that if you're 15 years old, you have the maturity to decide to have irreversible surgery on your body, but not the maturity to enter into a marriage with someone in which you can always get divorced? Can someone explain to me that? Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently commenting on Democrats' outrage at the idea of deporting non-Americans who come here on student visas and then call for the elimination of Jews. And this apparently is this is a battle worth dying on, or a hill worth dying on for Democrats when it comes to defending what they call free speech for people, again, not Americans who come here and call for the elimination of Jews. And Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, responds to that pushback by Democrats.
when you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, on a visitor's visa, okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities, I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. So when you apply for a student visa, or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason. But I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions. There are kids at these schools that can't go to class. You pay all this money to these high-priced schools that are supposed to be of great esteem, and you can't even go to class. You're afraid to go to class because these lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you out.
This is, again, why it is that increasingly just normal Americans are finding the Republican Party as the party of reasonable people and the Democrat Party the party of lunatics. What Marco Rubio explained there to the average person is just absolute common sense. Common sense. Even if you're not necessarily opposed to anti-Semitism, what he says still makes sense. Get the protests that are occurring? Democrat lawmakers signing letters of protest at the idea of deporting anti-Americans who come here from other countries and do exactly as Marco Rubio expressed, show and give support to Hamas, make college campuses so hostile to Jewish students they can't even go to class. And that is what Democrats decide they're going to defend. This is the same political party that spent 4 years utilizing the FBI to intimidate social media sites into censoring free speech when it came to the election, when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop, when it came to anything to do with COVID. They're very big supporters of suppressing free speech. All of the sudden, however, when it's somebody that's not even from this country that is supportive of the elimination of Jews, that is what Democrats decide to stand for.